Customer centricity. Now, we need to examine whether customer centricity is useful for an organization. Why is it useful for an organization? And if it is useful, what exactly is customer centricity? Aren't all organizations customer centric? They have to sell to a customer. Or is customer centricity something different? Does it involve redesigning our systems, processes, and interaction systems with the client in order to be customer centric? So, what exactly is customer centricity? And then we also need to see as to how we can become customer centric. Is it just forming a policy of being customer centric, of creating value plus for a customer? Is it sufficient, or is it something more than that? Now we shall examine these fundamental questions regarding customer centricity. Uh, the questions being customer centricity why, customer centricity what, and customer centricity how. Answering the first question, why customer centricity? See, it is very clear from data that if an organization becomes customer centric, the number of referrals, customer referrals for the organization enhanced by 250%. Profitability increases by approximately 60%. And the return on investment increases by 50%. This data by itself is sufficient to prove the case for customer centricity. So whenever an organization makes an attempt to be customer centric, its overall profitability and ROI increase. And that is why most organizations, especially the large organizations, are moving towards the customer centric model. As of now, there are approximately 20% organizations which are customer centric, and this figure is going to be somewhere near 60% by the year 2018. So that answers the question as to why customer centricity. Now let's get into the question of what is customer centricity. Customer centricity basically means customer value. What is the value that you provide to your customer? And customer experience. The kind of experience that the customer gets when the customer interacts with you with respect to your touch points, customer contact points. So sum total of customer experience and customer value is customer centricity. Then moving on to the third question, customer centricity how? Now this is, it appears to be fairly simple, that we need to be customer centric. So let's design our systems to be customer centric. In fact, it is not that simple. Now we need to do multiple, kinds of analysis and mapping in order to be customer centric. And we of course have to redesign some of our processes and systems so that we can create more value for our customers. Now, in order to be customer centric, there are three fundamental tools we need to utilize. Number one, we need to do customer needs analysis. Now that's fairly simple, not really. For that, we need to understand what are customer needs. Customer needs by themselves are essentially of three types. One are the needs for which the customer comes to you. There's a certain requirement here. The customer has certain requirements and wants that the customer approaches you for the satisfaction of certain needs. Now those are normal needs. Now those we need to satisfy anyway, but the customer needs are not limited to only those needs. In addition to those needs, the customer is a human being and thus has certain needs as a human being. Now those needs are extremely important, because if these needs are not satisfied, it will create a certain level of dissatisfaction in the customer, which is not really related to your product or service. Thus these needs also need to be satisfied. In addition to that, there are some exciting needs which the customer himself or herself doesn't really know he or she has until you provide that particular aspect of your service or product, which are latent needs. So essentially customer needs are of three types. Number one are your humane needs. Number two are your exciting needs, which are the latent needs. And number three are the normal needs for which the customer has come to us. Now we need to do a thorough analysis of these kinds of needs, and then we need to see whether we are satisfying these needs. We need to assess ourselves whether we these needs. And we also need to assess our competition to see where we are. If we're able to do this, we can determine whether we are actually satisfying the needs and where the gaps are in terms of customer centricity, in terms of the value that we are creating for our customer. Now, this is the first tool that needs to be utilized for customer centricity. Now, moving on, we need to also map the customer's journey. We need to formulate a customer journey map consisting of the different key steps the customer makes in the process of interacting with us as an organization and getting the service or the product which the customer desires. So what are the different stages that the customer goes through? And at each stage, what does the customer think, feel, or do? And thus, what is the experience that the customer is getting at each stage from our organization? Is the customer getting a bad experience at any stage, or all the stages, or some of the stages? And is the customer getting a good experience at some of the stages? So that will actually tell us where we are faltering on the customer experience scale. Now, that is going to give us an opportunity to improve our different competencies and processes and practices with respect to enhancing customer experience. Now, moving forward, we need to also clearly identify what are the different contact points of the customer with the organization. At each customer contact point, what are the competencies that one needs to practice, and what are the specific practices that need to be done in order to ensure that the competency gets executed. Now, these competencies need to be developed among all the personnel who are there at the customer contact points in order to ensure that the customer experience is the desired experience and the customer gets the desired value with respect to the product that we are delivering. In addition to that, one more last tool which can enable enhancement of value given to the customer is that of quality function deployment. Now, that basically involves identifying the processes which are required, which have been designed by the organization to deliver value for the customer. And we need to clearly identify which of these processes are more important in terms of the processes which are creating more value for your customer, so that we can innovate on these processes. When we innovate on those processes, we are able to enhance the value for the customer. Thus, if we use these tools, we are able to not only enhance the customer value, we can also enhance the customer experience. And that is what makes us customer centric.